as to a mistake. There's absolutely no difference. The only thing that is different is the hindsight. Well, that worked, and then that didn't work. And that is the complexity of learning new things. Is you don't know until you know, and sometimes it takes 2 times to get the answer. Sometimes it takes 5 times, and sometimes it takes 20 times, and sometimes you're gonna have 2 teams to do exactly the same thing step by step, and one is gonna succeed and the other one is gonna fail. So I think that it's always for me a danger or not constructive when we look into the past and we judge the past on what they did, because I think that everybody in the past, everybody, the vast majority of us in the past, always trying to get up in the morning and do the right thing, whether it's for our family, whether it's for our parents or for ourselves. We try to do the right thing. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes it works for that time and it doesn't work later. But we always, most of the time, are trying to make the best decisions with the information and the priorities that we have. And if we judge the past the way we judge it today, then we have to accept that in the future we will be judged with that same kind of simplicity, and we're like, well, that was a little simple-minded the way they did, but we are trying to do the right thing. And I mean, is that something that you share also?
Oh, that definitely resonates with me. If we focus so much on the past, we get stuck, we get so lost in spending time overanalyzing and overthinking things. And then that's where we kind of lose ourselves. We lose our timing and we lose our focus. So it's preventing us from going into the future. I mean, life lessons, those are what make us succeed. I mean, I can bring a good personal point. I had to take a meteorological exam to get my certification as a certified broadcast meteorologist. It took me 3 times to pass my test. And I know other people passed it on the first time. And it took me a couple months to get it, where other people were much faster. And I could have given up. I could have said, okay, I'm just not good enough at doing this, but I didn't. And now I try to use an example like that to motivate other people and say it's okay to fail. I mean, I think sometimes, and I'm sure you'll agree, we're so afraid of the word fail. It just doesn't sound right. But I think the more we get in tune with saying, failures are part of success, then we can move forward. And you're right about judging the past. I mean, that's like everybody in general. We all have a past. But if you focus so much on that, you're losing out on the person in the present that's right in front of you. And I think that's why you learn lessons from the past, but we take all of that into the present so we can have a better future.
Absolutely. Moving forward with acquired wisdom rather than trying to go backward and find someone to blame. That's what I always say.
Exactly. Yes, I agree 100%.
Meredith, there's 2 things that I want to go over with you. So the first one is you've been working. Your job is to try to express the future of nature, forces that are beyond our control, and somehow with the data that's coming, predicting something. We have this, I think, this desire to think that we can get to a point where we'll be able to predict nature in its entirety.
I'm sorry to laugh. It's just when I hear that, it's like, I think we all think that, but I mean, let's be honest. It's like saying, "Oh, I know exactly what's going to happen to me tomorrow," right?
It's so is your respective nature, despite the fact that all the tools are being given to you, technology is increasing, do you still remain humble on how you perceive and view nature as a force that ultimately is and will remain bigger than ourselves because it has to? That's life.
I agree. I mean, I go in and do forecasts the best of my abilities, and there are days that I have all the tools. I have all of my knowledge from experience from storms in the past, and one small thing will change, and my forecast is a bust, or it goes in a completely different direction. And I could have crisper images. I could get that imagery way faster, but at the end of the day, I mean, it's part of, I mean, that's like, I can't control what you do every day, just like you can't control what I do every day. The human nature in general, the weather, everything, It's on its own journey, pretty much, since we're talking about journeys. And so, as great as technology gets, we're never going to be perfect at that. We could get close, and we could have some days where everything lines up that we've learned with everything that we're seeing. But I think if we try, I always like to think of that analogy about holding sand in your hand. You can hold it really, really, really tight and think you have control of it, and there's going to be some sand that's going to always fall out. That's always how it's going to be. You're never going to have every single little granule. But the more you're open, the more you're allowing it to just be and observe and, just do your best, you'll get most of it. But, it's like, I think sometimes when we try to take on something way too much and think that we're going to perfect it, it's never going to happen. And I'm willing to admit when I make a mistake, or if my forecast, for example, it doesn't work out, then I go back, I see what happened. And sometimes it might have been a forecast error on me, but other times it's just nature just doing its thing. And we're never going to be able to control that.
So do you,
Or we shouldn't
yeah.
either.
Do you see your job as both communicating the forecast of nature, but also helping the viewers process that information and know how to deal with it, and learn where to take it, and where to leave it?
I think one of my biggest things that I work and strive to be is a good communicator, because my background's in science. I do science every single day. People that don't see the same types of forecasts, weather patterns, and that, they're not going to know what's going on. And as much as I could recite things I learned in college and from textbooks, I always try to put myself in other people's shoes and think, if I was looking at this forecast, if I was looking at this pattern for the first time, what would I want to know? How would that impact me? Whether it's, for example, this recent hurricane, am I going to be in its path? If I am, what are the hazards we're looking at? And what are the chances, of us getting really bad versus not as bad? And so I try to answer those questions, but in a way that's easy to understand. So your 3-year-old daughter would understand that, or your 95-year-old grandmother, because you have to have simplicity. So you're almost teaching, but in also communicating in a way that people are like, oh, that makes sense to me. But you're also leaving them wondering, okay, so what's next? That's the purpose of storytelling. We want to tell a good story that when we get to the end, you just want to know more.
It's it's often a failure of the science, of the engineering world, to think that when they try to express or to communicate, they speak in the language that most of the people don't understand, and they think that charts will resonate with the audience, or people want to know numbers. And when ultimately there's a reason why we have marketing people, there's a reason why we have advertising people. It's a different language. Storytelling, the human experience, is a different language. And I like that NASA and the space industry has been acknowledging the necessity to have communicators that are more expert in their storytelling, and their job is really to connect, the engineering, the science aspect, to the population. And I think you and I, this is one of the reasons why we are in this, is because we acknowledge your capacity. We come from the outside, right? We're not the engineer people. We're not the space geek people. We are people in the storytelling, the business of storytelling, and the human story, and being able to connect those dots. And this is what you do best, right?
Exactly. I mean, you think about your favorite, I mean, this applies to everybody. You think about a book you read or a movie you saw, and you get the emotions that it brings out in you. It touches you in some way. It makes it real to you, even if it's a fictional story. But it's that human aspect of being able to connect to the story, to have emotions, to feel empathetic, to feel excited. And when you're telling a story and you can tell it in a way that you're drawing somebody in where it becomes almost real to them, or it is real to them, I mean, that's a good story. Because at the end of the day, this is our everyday life. We go out and we do what we do every single day. But when we have that human aspect, and you put all the charts and everything aside, and you're just having a conversation like we are today, and you're telling a story that, tugs somebody's heartstrings or makes them excited or motivated. That's how you got a good story, right?
It's and so now the other point that I want to touch with you is how you we read a lot about these stories back in the days of explorers or crazy people going to Antarctica or the Arctic and suffering for like winters so that they could just record the temperature. I mean, the English people were like known just to go like, oh, we're gonna go to Antarctica and just like build a little hut and like dying in the process for what? So that they could record the temperature every day. Now we have satellites. We have a capacity to gather information without having a cost of human exploration. I mean, you must be excited now of how you're able to tap into these new sources of information so that you can kind of analyze these systems that are complex in their nature, but just the capacity to have these different perspective, right?
Oh, it's great. I mean, I think about when I started off in the business back in the 2000s, and I mean, sometimes I was drawing maps by hand, but now it's saving me time by having a lot of extra data and a lot of extra information. So I can really, when I put my forecasts out, I can really take that extra time to focus on the human aspect and zone in on maybe this storm system is changing a little bit. And, I've seen that before. So I'm going to say it's probably going to go this way because I see this, and then I see this and that on a satellite imagery that, is so crisp that even the slightest changes you can record, you can go back, you can look at. And I think those original sacrifices that you were talking about, the crazies, we all have that in us, because sometimes you have to be that one person that goes out on a limb and has an idea or has something that you want to go out and make happen or prove. And so that's such a critical point. But also having this extra help now, I think, through the satellite imageries, through the data that we're getting, that it's just going to make us, like you said, we're creating a much better future for us now because we have the tools to do so.
So I have this theory about nature of the universe. It's hard. I don't believe that nature on Earth is different than the nature of the universe. Nature doesn't have, not that I want to personify nature, but it doesn't have different models. It has one model and it works on different scales. So the whether you're a microbe or you're a tree or you're a planet, it's pretty much the same thing but at different scales. Do you think that there will be a point in the future where we have your job, but analyzing the the universe, and where you have different winds in the universe moving at different speed? You have storms, but the scale will be different.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm excited for that. I mean, we see it on, like you said, the micro level, the macro level, and then a global level with weather patterns. And then I think once we start going into space and seeing how winds can change certain things and how all that just comes together, I think it's, like any basics that we learn, the basic fundamentals of things, it becomes exciting and challenging all at the same time to take it to this different level, because in the beginning it might be tough, but I'm sure after we do the research and we start to see the patterns and whatnot, it's going to be like everything that we've been doing here on Earth. It's just going to be a different scale and different impacts to, say, outer space or a different planet versus what we've been accustomed to here on Earth.
So your job in the future might be talking about the level of radiation coming from the storm, because the sun, because there's a solar storm, and then there's some unusual activity in some quadrant of the solar system. So be careful for like all these added layers of reality that we're going to be dealing with.
I'm excited. I know I'm probably such a nerd right now, but we're all, in this together. But yes, I think it's going to be fascinating to do forecasts on a completely different level. And, whether it's helping astronauts, whether it's helping people that are living on other planets or traveling through space, I mean, I think it's going to be fascinating, and it's going to take work. I mean, like anything else when you're learning something new, but I think using what I've learned already through my forecasting with weather here on this planet, the more to dive into other things, to look more at space weather, I think it's something that it's keeping my interest sparked in the space industry on a personal level. But I think for professionals, especially for say kids that want that interest in space and science, like it's opening the door for so many more future explorers and so many future scientists that it's fun. I'm really pumped about this.
I'm always mindful. I just recently flew back from Iceland, and every time now that I'm in a plane, how flights now will rarely go through systems that can be extremely threatening or dangerous, because again, the capacity to have the information before we get there, compared to back in the days, you would fly and then it would be like, well, let's cross fingers, we're not going to go through any systems, and then if there was a system too big, and you can't just turn around and go back, you have to go through it, and then there will be a lot of accidents. But it's amazing how our lives have been transformed by this innovation of collecting data before we get to experience it. I mean, and you're right that you're right at the center of the storm, and really this what your work is built on.
Yeah, I mean, I just think there's so much out there that we don't know, but that stuff is also things that we can build on what we already do know. It's kind of that, like you said, going into the unknown, um, like we did when we first started to get better radar for pilots. And now you've got radar and you've got satellite data and you've got people that are analyzing things way in advance to help. And I agree with you. I mean, when I fly in a plane and I'm sitting there on my radar and I'm looking and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to get home. There's a severe weather system over the Midwest, and then find out we divert it by going south. I mean, I just think it's fascinating, and it's also really cool to know we made that progress, and through mistakes and also learning experiences, we've been able to get to where we are today, so we can have this advanced data so people can feel a little bit more comfortable and a little bit more safe when they're on a plane or they're traveling.
Now, working at the news station, which is not necessarily a space media outlet, you've been surrounded yourself by a lot of what I would call the non-space people, the non-space community. Over the last 2-3 years, what have you noticed in the general public perception or transition, and the reaction towards the all the innovations that's happening within space?
I really like the excitement. I mean, I think back when I first got bitten by the space bug, like I said, 2016, 2017, and I was doing stories that people were like, yeah, this is kind of interesting, or, oh, I haven't heard about that. And now, every time we have a press release that comes through about something exciting in space, immediately I get a message, hey, we're going to talk about this tonight on the news. There's like this new level of interest in what's going on. And even, for example, what was it? The other night, there was the Starlink satellites. And we had all these people calling into the newsroom. Oh my gosh, I saw this. Is this an alien? What's going on? What's going on? And I knew it was us seeing the Starlink satellites passing by. But there's just so many more excited people wanting to know what's going on. And I think it's that excitement that's going to help us do our job, and also generate more interest in telling more of these unique stories of what's going on, and not just a launch, not just sending astronauts into space. I mean, the whole thing of space that's going on and what we're doing. I think the more stories and the more we have the human interest stories, for example, of people in our communities that are doing these things, or school kids that are getting grants to work on building model rockets. Like, it's starting to catch on, and more people now are wanting to hear what's going to happen next.
It's full of excitement to think that there's a generation now that is growing up with the reality that space is there, and no more of a, science fiction that we will have another person back on the moon, and there's someone alive today who's going to be the first person on Mars, and then that expansion of the human experience, it just opens up this canvas of possibilities, and just, and I think that this is where we thrive as a species, when we can touch what we thought was impossible. It just, all the light starts to work, and all these, I mean, not that, I often say we're soon to be 8 billion on the planet. Let's not assume that 8 billion brains are working properly, but we have many billion brains, trying to work on the solution. And there's a future where there's going to be even more people, even more brains trying to figure out solutions and challenges. And there's, in some other presentations, I say that, like, when life went from single cell to multi cells in the evolution on Earth, it did a quantum leap in evolution and led to the Cambrian era. And now we're about to go from single planet to multi-planet, and there's going to be quantum leap in evolution and innovation, and it's super exciting. If I was young, because now I'm getting old, but if I was young, it would be a tremendous, I think, time to go to school.
Oh my gosh, I couldn't agree more. I mean, next thing you know, we're going to have curriculums actually built in elementary school that'll have a whole space chapter. At least that's my hope.
Are you so now you're going to be in Washington soon. You're, besides the News 12, you're involved a lot in STEM and other, moderating a lot of space events. What are the upcoming events that you're working on?
Yes. So I have my, my day job, but I guess I would call doing space stuff. I mean, it's a hobby, but it's also a side passion that I have, that I do outside of my my meteorologist duties. And I'm going to be moderating a panel on October 5th, which it's going to be fantastic. It's a luncheon. We're going to be talking with members from the White House Space Council and the Department of Education, Defense, and the whole focus on this panel is going to be inspiring that future workforce, whether it's STEM, whether it's space, whether it's just anybody that's interested in going in that direction. And so it's going to be a great conversation, and we're going to be getting great conversations going about, this direction, and how as a nation we're going to come together to get that support. And then probably later this year, I do a lot of moderating panels for Foundation for the Future, which is a great organization. They're really, they have this Conversations for the Future, which it's just, there's a topic on space, and then you have experts from all over that chime in, that do presentations, that do Q&As. And I really like to moderate that panel because it's always something new. And a lot of times it's new people that are just getting into the space business that are really excited, paired with people that have been working on this for maybe like a decade or something like that. And it's really good to see where everybody's coming together and they're excited and they're passionate about this, and then sharing that with people that may not be familiar with what's going on. And then, of course, I mean, looking far out, there's the satellite conference, there's a space symposium. I just love to do things on my off time and my free time that I'm passionate about. And I can tell you, when I do a lot of my school talks, or I do a lot of motivational talks to college students, especially high school students, it's really captivating to them when I talk about space and how it's for everybody, and how there's stuff that they might think is maybe that won't go. But if you think about in the long run, it's definitely going to be needed. And you could take a job where you like to build stuff, and next thing you know, you're building colonies on Mars. And so I'm just always looking for the next opportunity to use my experience as a public speaker, and also my background with my passion for space, to motivate these future generations, and to tell these stories that need to get out there. Because if we don't tell them, like you said, it's just science fiction. But when we're making it reality and we're actually talking about what's happening right now, people are just going to get even more enthralled with what's to come. But then they're also going to want to find out the how. How can I contribute? How can I be a part of this?
If you have the opportunity of going to space, the moon, or, I mean, beyond just like the going up on the rocket, let's say you have a job at the news desk on Moon. Would you take it?
Yes. I was doing my research and I found out that there have been a few male meteorologists in space, but there's never been a female meteorologist that has been to space. And that's kind of my goal. I want to go up there. I want to maybe work on some observing and looking at hurricanes or storm systems and seeing how it is forecasting from space. Or eventually, if I was able to be on Mars or on the moon and take that atmosphere and learn about it and learn patterns kind of all over like I learned with patterns here on Earth, I would definitely be interested. And I'd really want to document it and share it as a real person, just like everybody that's watching me, somebody that's the girl next door, somebody that's just like me. I want to be that person to go up there and say, hey, you know what? I'm not up here because I wrote a check for all this money to do it. I mean, I'm sure I would need that money to go, but I want to go up there and I want people to see what I'm doing and be motivated by that.
And I think that there's a general agreement that the industry is also open and looking for that. There's like, I don't think that we feel that it's impossible or there's like a shut door. Whether you're talking to Axiom or you're talking to any other space companies, Sierra Space, everyone is trying to incorporate that element, even space perspective, and the way that they want to go up and open. Have some that are not necessarily about paying guests, but giving back to the community. So there is this desire to create those opportunities. Meredith, what would be? We're coming to the end, and I just want to be mindful of your time. Your words of wisdom. If anyone, young generation young people that are watching this, or even older ones, what would be your words of wisdom by Meredith?
That's always so hard. That's always the question. You always gets you because then you really have to think. But I'm just going to speak from my soul and I'm going to speak from my experience because I always find that's when I say the best things. And you just have to be you. Be weird. Be unique. Be the person that when you look in the mirror, you are proud to be that person, no matter what anybody else says. Because there are going to be people that are going to laugh at you. There are going to be people that talk behind your back. There are going to be people that are jealous of you and your success, and they're going to want to do whatever they want to try to bring you down. But don't focus on that. At the end of the day, you have to focus on who you are inside. You have to focus on your beliefs, on your dreams, on your goals, but also keeping in mind, as I was said earlier, that success is never achieved alone. And it's going to be those mentors, those people you look up to. It's going to be your colleagues, your family, your friends that have believed in you this whole time. When you surround yourself with those people, you're going to be successful. And it's going to take practice, but the older you get, the more wise you get, the more you're going to be able to spot the people that are just there for a reason or a season. So focus in on those people that make your soul sing. Make those people your priority, but also the people you turn to help you achieve your biggest dreams and your biggest goals, because we all are here for our own purpose. We are all here for our own journeys, and nobody's is ever going to be the same. And when you focus on your specific path, when you believe in yourself, when you're surrounding yourself with people that believe in you and your goals, no matter how weird or out of this world they may be, you're going to succeed. And you're going to fall down, you're going to have setbacks, but if you never give up, you're going to succeed in whatever you want. And whatever you want in life, it may take you extra years, extra hours, extra time, but if you are persistent, and you believe and have the faith and trust, you're going to succeed, and you're going to have people there that are going to be cheering you on the whole way.
High five to that. Meredith, it was a pleasure having you in the Future Space. I'm looking for, I know that you and I, we've missed each other on a couple of occasions, but I know that our path will cross. And next time we will meet, we'll be over a dinner with other space people and sharing a bottle of wine and celebrating the human experience. So
that sounds wonderful. And this is great. And I'm so happy people like you were able to connect with me. And I think that's what the great thing is. We met, I think, what, on social media or LinkedIn. And now here we are, like almost meeting in person. But that's the other lesson I think from all this is don't be afraid to reach out to people, because like-minded people, passionate people like you're going to connect. And you never know until you try. And there's going to be people that will be like, whatever, but that's their loss, right? Because now you and I are connected and we have this amazing connection and passion for space. And so I'm glad we both said yes to our passions and our dreams, and now we get to support each other in the future. And I can't wait to see what you accomplish as well and be there as one of those cheerleaders as well.
Thank you very much. And then talking about connecting, we'll make sure that all your LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, and all your other social media platform and website will be in the description so that people can reach out to you. Meredith, it was a pleasure. Thank you so very much.